have reached this 7th verse, and as we were describing this morning, we cross this boundary now from the first verses. The first 6 verses are very much dealing with our sudden bhajan, sudden bhakti. And then in the 6th verse we came to like full-blown bhav bhakti. 5th verse was asakti. And now it's into prem. We were describing this morning how it's impossible for us to describe prem. We can describe the framework of it. We can describe the analysis that Srila Rupa Goswami has given, the psychology of love. We can understand what is the cause. This is called vaibhav. In the area or aspect of vaibhav, we're understanding that there are 2 types, there are 2 aspects within this staibhav. The first is alamban. Alamban means the support for the cause. And then there is the udipan. So what I'm describing now is something called rasa tattva. So this is simply the language of rasa to help us enter. So at some point we should examine this carefully in Bhaktivedanta Swami's Nectar of Devotion. This is the same as the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So there all of these terminologies are very clearly. Have you read that? The Nectar of Devotion? Yes, yes. So that's very, very helpful.
When we were reading Jaiva Dharma, because we were reading in front of the deities every night.
Right.
When we got to the Abhichari Bhavas, we got so confused, I went out and bought Nectar of Devotion.
Right.
And Prabhupada gives, like, with each term,
the Sanchari Bhavs, yes.
The Abhichari Bhavas.
The Abhichari Bhav and Sanchari Bhav, same.
They're the same?
Yes, yes,
They're
yes,
the same.
yes.
He gave like a little
explanation
for each one, like a little story or something.
Oh, beautiful,
It
beautiful.
helped a lot.
Yes. Because they're very confusing, because one is despondent or disparaged or yes. But these, yeah, they seem to be negative, but it's counteracting the principle of affection. It's creating waves, just like Srimati Radhika's mood is called Bhaumya Bhav. This is like contrary. So this contrary mood is very conducive for creating waves in the relationship. If it was all just what is called Dakshin Bhav. Dakshin Bhav means very compliant, like Chandravali. Chandravali will never argue with Krishna. If she's unhappy with Krishna, she will just hold that in her. So she never exhibits any sort of contrary mood. Whereas Sri Radha, those contrary moods, Krishna loves them. And I described the other day how it turns into this man, turns into prem kotila, prem kutila, this crooked path. So many of the pastimes, it seems that Radha is taking a contrary mood to Krishna. But what we must understand is that when Gadadhar manifested, she's Radha, she kept all of these contrary moods hidden within her. Not in the whole life of Gadadhar did she ever display anything of a contrary nature to Mahaprabhu. So Gadadhar was taking this mood called Dakshin mood. This mood of Dakshin is the same mood that Rukmini has, because once there was some confusion because Srila Bhakti Rakshakshrita Maharaj had said that Gadadhar had a mood like Rukmini. But what he meant, what it was that he was saying, that Gadadhar was holding this Dakshin mood, this compliant mood. So all these different moods, when we examine them regularly, when we try to learn about Bhakti Ras, then we can gradually understand the divine couple's pastimes much more fully. Like I described the other day in detail about man, how it's not jealous and it's not anger. There's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Antilila, chapter 20, I'm sorry, and it's saying that if Krishna is feeling attraction for a gopi's anurag, a gopi, she will have or develop at different periods intense attraction for Krishna. This is called sometimes anurag. So she's like, in a sense, holding that emotion that she wants to give to Krishna. Krishna becomes aware of that love that gopi wants to offer to him. So he becomes attracted by that gopi's love for him. So he goes to that, he wants to see that gopi. But it's described that if that gopi has any sort of contrary mood and doesn't want to go to Krishna, because it's sometimes like that, then Sri Radha, she will go to that gopi and beseech that gopi, oh, you please go and see my Prananath, he wants to see you. And that gopi may say, oh, but I have too much housework to do and things like this. And Sri Radha at that point will say, oh, I will do your work for you. I will do your housework. So how can this mood of man have anything to do with jealousy? It's not jealousy. We don't have a language in English for these words. We can understand pick or pique, I think we say, when the female, she becomes contrary to the husband, and it's called a pick. She becomes like a huff, we can say. So it's kind of like that, but it's not like that. And it's certainly not anger. This man is not anger. I described how Lakshmi sometimes gets, she's called in man too, but that is a Rodra bhav, that is an anger bhav. But Sri Radha never becomes angry. But this is part of the progression, because from this man condition, then pranaya will become much thicker, this condensed stage of affection. But it's described, as I said the other day, in Braj, that pranaya comes before man. This very condensed feeling is before man, then there is man, then again there is pranaya. That pranaya becomes even thicker. So we can't understand these emotional states, but we can hear about them, and we can hear the different descriptions of them. And in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Kridai Bon Maharaj, in the very beginning, Gurudev said that book was so good, he wanted to translate Kridai Bon Maharaj's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's not the Bindu, it's the Sindhu, directly from Rupa Goswami. He wanted to translate it into Hindi. He was so happy with that publication.
In English or Bengali?
It's in English.
Yeah, I have it.
Hridai Bon Maharaj wrote it in English.
It's not complete.
No, it doesn't have the Ujjvala Nilamani, it just has the first part of it. Yes. But in the introduction to that, before you even get into the text, there's a very clear description of all of these stages, these transcendental loving stages. And it's very helpful to know those stages, to see what is the, how are those emotions flowing in that spiritual realm. They're so thick and they're so deep and so sweet and so special, we can't access them, but we can hear about them. We can have some understanding. And this understanding is called rasa tattva. By understanding these terminologies, we can describe the pastimes to some degree. It doesn't mean we can enter. We can only enter into these pastimes to any degree simply by Parambijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan, simply by chanting Hare Krishna. So I'm just going to read mostly from this, some verses from the Bhajana Rahasya today. And if you have any questions about this topic, then you interrupt me and we can discuss it. But basically, Gurudev, I think, demonstrated to us that Kartik when he just simply read directly from the 5th chapter of Bhajana Rahasya. He didn't try and elaborate on it. He didn't say anything extra. He just read directly. Because simply by hearing these verses, it has a very powerful effect on the heart. It can give us a very clear understanding of what is this stage or what is this state that we've reached. We've been going through the different stages of bhakti, carefully examining each stage in bhakti. And then we can understand my own progress, because if I'm understanding the stage that I'm at now, or the stage that I'm aspiring for now, then it gives my journey on this path much more, it gives it encouragement. We start to see where I'm going. I've said repeatedly that we have to know the sadhya. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai, Satchinandana Gaur Hari Ki Jai. We have to know what is the goal. We have to know exactly where we're going. If we know where we're going, then things become very smooth and clear and focused, even if we come into places where we feel completely bereft. But we understand what's happening now. We came from the 5th verse where it's described, Mahaprabhu is describing, he wants to be like a speck of dust on Krishna's lotus feet. That's his aspiration. And then his aspiration, it seems, is to shed tears and the voice choke up and hair stand on end. This seems like an aspiration. It's a dynamic of greed. He wants to go forward like that. But then when these tears are welling in his eyes, it's describing in this verse, Yugayitam Namishena, that like showers of tears are coming from the eyes. So he's reached that stage, but what is the condition of his consciousness in that stage? Now everything has become devoid of anything. He's become bereft of anything because he feels this vacancy in separation from Radha or from Krishna. Mahaprabhu is feeling separation from Krishna. It's feeling like a vacancy. He's not with Krishna. So this vacancy is fueling the fire of enthusiasm and greed to be with Krishna. This is what this vacancy is. It's a stage in prem. It is prem itself. It's vipralambha-bhava. And in that intense separation, like we described today of Sri Radha at Uddhav Kyari, that intense separation, it will carry that person into union with the beloved. In other words, Sri Radha, she's meeting. And I described something about this Nandanastakam song that we sing, which is a whole description of Sri Radha's mohan bhav, this mood of separation. And by doing this painting with chitra, it's invoking the presence of Krishna. So Krishna becomes manifest in that high stage of separation. So this is the goal. This is the path. This is where Mahaprabhu, who is our Bhajan, Shiksha, Guru, Mahaprabhu is explaining us how to perform bhajan in this birth. And he's very carefully shown through the previous stages how to go through anartha nivritti, how to become more humble than the blade of grass, without imbibing these qualities from the previous 4 verses. How will any of these higher realms make sense? How can they become a reality for us? So we know what our sadhana is. Our sadhana is to practice the description in the first 4 verses, but they are leading to that place of consciousness in the next 4 verses. That's where this asakti, then bhav, and then vipralambha-bhava, and then prem. So it's showing very, very clearly, just like a necklace, you know, of a stage. So it makes it very simple for our progress to see like that, to see that analysis. And now when we come to this point, we need to know something of the descriptions of rasa tattva. And I described that this sthai bhav, sthai, fixed emotion. We all have our fixed emotion. And I explained before that Srila Gurudev had said, if you come to the camp of Mahaprabhu, it's practically assured that you are in this eligibility to attain manjari bhav, because this is directly what Mahaprabhu came to give. And it's described in that verse, Anapita chirin chirat karunai bharatino kalo samadavaitam unnata ujvala rasam sva bhakti shriyam. This sva bhakti, Krishna's own bhakti shriyam, the beauty of Krishna's bhakti. What is Krishna's bhakti? Is Sri Radha. And what is the beauty of her bhakti? What is the beauty of Sri Radha? Is her intimate associates, her most intimate associates, who are the Manjaris, who are with Sri Radha always. And we describe that all of our Guru Bhagya has revealed their Manjari identities. So this is our goal. This is the place to go. Don't be shy of trying to understand this aspect of Rasa Tattva, and this understanding that this is actually the treasure, because Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, in his word-for-word translation of this verse, he translates Shriyam as treasure. And our Gurudev has told us what is the treasure, which is very interesting to see how, without the light of Shiksha, how would we know what is the treasure? Sometimes it's said that all the truths are within Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's books. Yes, of course they are. But do we understand them? Can we understand them without the torchlight of Shiksha? How would you understand what is the treasure that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is talking about in that verse, unless you have a Shiksha Guru who will explain the treasure to us? Actually, Prabhupada, if you put a search in his folio program of Manjari, I think you only get one reference, and that's in Upadeshamrita, right at the very end. That's the only reference. So Prabhupada would keep that very, very confidential for a particular reason, that generally those followers were not eligible at that time. But then, after Srila Prabhupada came Srila Gurudev and saw that our eligibility had increased. Srila Gurudev didn't have to give us Srimad Bhagavatam, we already had it. He didn't have to give us Chaitanya Charitamrita, we already had it. He didn't have to tell us how we should conduct our lives, we'd already been told that. He didn't have to tell us entirely what are our anarthas, etc. We'd already been told that. He wasn't about to labor and cut the jungles of Mayavad for no reason. He wanted to just plant this very clear seed of Raganuga Bhakti. He wanted to expose it. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada came to give Raganuga Bhakti, but initially he had to cut the jungles of Mayavad and Brahmavad that were in the hearts of all those Western devotees, and are still in the hearts. This is why we must still clear these weeds and darknesses away from our hearts. But we can only do this by focusing on the higher reality. And I explained to you before that this last verse in the Rasa Panchadaya section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's one beautiful verse, it's very important. It's like a pivotal verse that Sukadeva Goswami has spoken. Vikriditam brajavadubi itam cha Vishnu shradanvito nushrunyad artha varenyam ya bhaktim param bhagavati prati labhya karmam hridrogamasam apinoti acharena dira. This is saying that one should hear the Vikriti, the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna, very carefully. And he should first of all hear them, then varenyadya, then he should speak them. He should speak about those pastimes. And with the speaking of those pastimes, then remembrance will come. This is our process. Shravanam, we hear. Kirtanam, we speak. Then smaranam, then we can remember the pastimes. This is the process. You hear, then you speak, and then you can remember. If you never speak about these sort of topics, how can you remember them easily? And certainly if you never hear about them, then you can never remember them. So in other words, we have to hear about these. And then, in the rest of this verse, Bhaktim Param, Bhagavati Prati Labhya, that this bhakti will flourish when we have heard these pastimes, when we have heard the positive conclusion. Then Bhakti Devi will manifest in our heart, not the other way round. And he's written very, very clearly in that beautiful introduction to Venu Gita that if you think that you can, by austerity, etc., etc., purify all of your deficiencies and anarthas, etc., and then come to a place where, yes, now I'm worthy to hear the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, that's completely bogus. We can never be worthy by our own practices to hear and remember the pastimes of Krishna. These are bestowed upon us. So by the hearing of these, this will give us bhakti, and then at the end of this verse, it's saying this karma, krid rogam. Rogam means disease, krid means the heart. This calm, this lust of the heart will be purified by hearing about these pastimes. This is the process. Not that you try independently to purify your existence and then think, yes, now I've become qualified to hear Rasa Tattva. Some schools of devotees say like this. This is completely not in line with Srila Rupa Goswami. It's not the same teaching as Rupa Goswami. It's not the same teaching as Jiva Goswami. It's not the same teaching as any of our Goswamis. First we hear submissively the sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and then we can be carried into that realm of pure bhakti, bhaktim param bhagavati labhya, this pure bhakti. This is the process. So Srila Gurudev, he gave us this process very clearly. Here is the positive path. Here is the path to remember the sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So understand, when we're hearing these texts, then it's giving us a clear picture of what is the sadhya. Don't be afraid. Don't be thinking, oh, I'm not worthy. Of course we're not worthy. Who can ever become worthy? Krishna himself will make us worthy by hearing about these pastimes. What is the worthiness? The worthiness is our enthusiasm to hear these pastimes. This is the symptom of our worthiness. So this is Gurudev's vritti, his explanation of the previous verse. Sriman Mahaprabhu is absorbed in Sri Radha's feelings of intense separation from Sri Krishna. He says, Saki, in my distress without Sri Nandanandan, my days stand still. This is what this verse is about. Yugayitam Nishinga. It's like a millennium. A moment is like a millennium. So without Krishna, I'm standing still. My time is standing still. Each and every moment seems like an entire millennium. Tears flow incessantly from my eyes like torrents of rain from the clouds. I cannot tolerate separation from Govinda anymore. The entire universe appears void, and my body constantly burns in the fire of separation from him. It is as if my limbs have been placed in a fire of burning husks. Today I described about the husks, and here it's given an explanation of this. It's saying that burning husks are difficult to extinguish. They burn very slowly and emit much heat. The analogy is used to describe Radhika's extreme suffering. It's described in Ananda Vrindavan Champu that the gopis' moods of separation is like they've been bitten by hundreds of scorpions. They have hundreds of arrows piercing their heart. They have such extreme pain in their separation from Krishna. By hearing about this, is it switched on?
Yeah, this one turned on.
I think you should have it pointing at me rather than at the side. If it was this, was pointing more towards me. This, okay. And take it back. That's right. Now I'm speaking into the mic. So this pain of separation will carry that individual into meeting. This pain of separation is carrying Sri Radha into a meeting with Krishna. This is the understanding. Now, both Purva Rag, which is attachment prior to meeting one's beloved, and pravesh, which is separation by distance, are favorable to bhajan in the mood of separation. So this separation is there. Rati, attachment that is filled with eagerness and which exists prior to meeting, is called purvarag. I described that this morning, the purvarag of the gopis, when it first manifested, when Krishna was dancing on the heads of Kaliya. When the gopis, who are deeply attached to Sri Krishna, hear the glories of his form, qualities and so forth, many types of sentiments are stimulated in their hearts, and an astonishing impatience arises that is impossible to describe. These are all transcendental descriptions. We are hearing about the transcendental emotions from that transcendental realm. This is giving us an idea of this positive alternative that I've just described, that is necessary for this bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya, this bhakti to rise in the heart. It will arise it will be motivated and enthused by our hearing these spiritual descriptions, not by some austerity or practice of some, fasting for so many days or doing all kinds of things. That's not going to invoke the softness of Bhakti Devi. That will probably invoke pride in the heart of that person who's doing it. So there's a verse when Narad is saying, if I'm remembering Radha and Krishna, what is the point of austerities? And if I'm not remembering Radha and Krishna, what is the point of austerities? In other words, what is the value of doing something that is, going simply practically to dry up the heart, these austerities, and trying as if we're trying to make ourselves worthy. We can't be worthy. We will be worthy by Krishna's mercy. That's how we will become, by Guru's mercy.
Didn't Gurudev say in the beginning that to hear the topics of the gopis with Krishna was the fastest way to cleanse their...
Yeah, you've missed some of the class, because this is what I was just describing around for 10 minutes. I was saying this verse in the Bhagavatam, Vikriditam Brajavadubi itam cha Vishnu, Shradan Vito Nushunyat Artha Varenyamya. This is saying that the wealth, Artha Varenyamya, is to hear the sweet, relishing pastimes of Radha and Krishna. This is the last verse in the Rasa Panchadiya section. In all those 5 chapters, it's the very last verse Shukadev Goswami is saying. And then in the 3rd and 4th line, it's saying that only by hearing these pastimes will this bhaktim param bhagavati labhya, will this pure bhakti arise in the heart. What is bhakti? Bhakti means my attraction for Radha and Krishna. How can my attraction for Radha and Krishna even remotely begin to manifest if I don't hear about Radha and Krishna? It's just fictitious. It's just bogus. It means that you're practicing some sadhana to achieve a different end other than Shuddha Bhakti. And many thousands and millions perhaps in the world practice the path of bhakti with other motives, that they actually want liberation. I mean, when we first came to this path, most of us wanted liberation. Most of us wanted just to be happy. That's why we came. It's a rare soul who wants to actually go to Vrindavan in the very first few weeks of becoming a devotee. They actually come because they've been smashed so heavily by the material energy, and they just want relief. And they think, oh, this spiritual path will give me some sort of relief. But it's just like in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When you start to read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami talks about the bliss of liberation. In the first couple of chapters, that's like the goal, the bliss of mukti or moksha. But then as you progress through that scripture, it becomes the bliss of seva. He very beautifully, just quietly transfers that bliss of liberation into the bliss of seva. It's very amazing the way he actually does it. And before you know where you are, you're just thinking about how you can serve Radha and Krishna. And then that potential within the heart, which is already there, that Krishna Seva Vasana, it's already in the heart, starts to flourish by itself. It's not ultimately an imposition on the self. It's actually the reality of our Swarup, is to serve. Krishna has manifested all of us through Sri Radha to bring pleasure to himself. Krishna is the Bhogya, he is the enjoyer. Bhaktaram Yagyatapasham, Sarvaloko Maheshwara. He's the enjoyer of everything. We are the enjoyed by nature. And I described the other day, even if you go into the Brahman, still in that condition, you're still actually serving Krishna. Rupa Goswami is described in the Lagu Amrita, he's described there, that the effulgence of the jiva is actually supporting or is contributing to Krishna's own Brahmajyoti. You can't escape it. So this seva to Krishna, it's the nature of the heart. So by understanding this seva to the divine couple, then gradually Bhakti Devi will begin to manifest. But if I'm trying to do it independently, not hearing about the pastimes, thinking, no, that's too high for me, I just have to, have hellfire and brimstone all the time. That's my only level that I can hear about. Then how can the heart soften?
Why is this book, Bhajana Rahasya, so the whole book is saying the Jatarati Bhakta can meditate on his pastime, and it doesn't say the Ajatarati.
Yes, but the Ajatarati Bhakta is leading to the Jatarati. It's the evolution from the person, that sadhak who does not have bhav. It's to bring that sadhak to a place where he does have bhav. So everywhere through this Bhajana Rahasya, there is the parallel for the devotee who already has bhav. That's our goal, that's our focus, that's the place we intend to go to. And these verses we come to, it's principally, this whole chapter 7, I was reading today, practically the entire chapter 7 is just these, like, almost tortured moods of the gopis from Venugit. These moods of separation from Krishna, this viraha, this vipralambha. Now, the Jatarati sadhak is already contemplating these. We are trying to come to that platform. Otherwise, if we don't have this focus, what is the value of our sadhana bhajan?
Another point is,
it's like in the educational system. You go through your kindergarten, then your, high school, primary school, high school, then you go to university, then you maybe take an MA, then you have a PhD. You have all these different gradations of, qualifications. Similarly, it's the same journey, it's the same dynamic of progressing through the different stages. But it's a spiritual stage.
It's all right to meditate on this pastime.
If you don't meditate on these, yes, you have to again, if you're in any doubt for this, she's asking, is it all right to meditate? I'm stressing again and again this whole evening how we can't even begin to move forward without hearing about these pastimes. It's not possible to really, because what is bhakti? What is bhakti? Bhakti means my devotion for Radha and Krishna. If I don't hear about those highest devotees, the gopis' devotion for Krishna, how can my devotion be inspired? For example, if you want to be an athlete of any sort, say you're doing the high jump, then you take an interest in those who are the greatest people at jumping over those heights. And if you take an interest in Bhakti Devi, if this is your path of Braja Prem, then you take an interest in those who are most qualified. And those most qualified are the gopis. And what is their mood? Why are they so qualified? What is the moods within them? What are their bhavs? All for Krishna's. It's described by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur that the gopis exhibit the highest love known to humanity for Radha and Krishna. They show that sweetness. So this is our goal, to follow We are rag in a path of rag anuga. So we're going towards this goal. There can be no doubt for this. But we have to be very cautious about how we actually personally present this. If we're just speaking about very intimate topics, you know, without a full sort of grounding in the early, in sadhana, then how are those people hearing going to get any benefit from it? What may happen if that devotee is not very mature? He may try and jump and imagine that he is on a much higher level, and this will be, you know, to his greatest disadvantage, disaster, totally. He'll jump up, and what will happen? He'll fall down flat and probably even break his little bhakti. So we must, you see, we're talking about these topics very easily now because we've spent, actually I think this is the 24th or 25th class that we've had together. We've come for, at the end, tomorrow, I will have spoken for 42 hours on this topic. So in the first 30 hours, and even more, it was principally about, you know, how to purify our anarthas, etc. We've made a good platform now to be able to put this palace of rasa somewhere on that platform. So we don't have to be afraid to hear these topics now. But anyway, they're not so intimate. If you go to Gopi's place in the evening, then you can hear some intimate pastimes from Vilap Kusumanjali or somewhere like that. But we're not discussing really intimate pastimes. We're just discussing what is vipralambha-bhava, what are the moods and how does it manifest. When the gopis who are deeply attached to Sri Krishna hear the glories of his form, qualities and so forth, many types of sentiments are stimulated in their hearts, and an astonishing impatience arises that is impossible to describe. Those learned in the Rasa Shastras call this impatience purvarag. In this state of purvarag, various sanchari bhavs arise. We were just talking before about these sanchari bhavs. There's 33 of them, and they are seemingly of a negative quality: despondency, disparagement, bewilderment, complete abject humility. These moods which churn the lake of the Staibab. The Staibab is like a lake, and these moods, they churn that lake with feelings, They make the rasa manifest. Without these waves, there's no rasa. Like there's a very clear example of this. When Sri Radha left the rasa stali, she was in a state of man. She went to Shringarabad, just next door. Krishna, he pacified her man. Radha, she came to that heroine's state called Svadhina Bhartika. Svadhina Bhartika is the state that all heroines in their loving relationship want to attain when they have completely controlled their beloved. It's described that Radha has the goad that will control the elephant of Krishna. She's totally made him submissive. He's had to be like that to pacify her high man. So now Sri Radha is in this mood called Svadhina Bhartika. It's the most powerful heroine. It's the place that all the gopis are satisfied when Sri Radha reaches that place. So they're walking through the forest. Krishna has taken on this mood of Dakshin, which is very submissive to Sri Radha. Otherwise, how can Radha be the supreme heroine if Krishna is being contrary to that? No, Krishna is completely compliant. He's totally in this submissive mood. And Sri Radha is calling what is happening. But then, and in this mood is described, there is rasa, because there is a contradiction of moods. One is the controlling, Svadhina Bhartika, and one is the submissive, Dakshin. So there is some mood, there is some play between these two emotions. But then when Krishna says to Radha, oh, do you want to come to a flower bed or keep walking? Then Radha's mood suddenly changes. It changes for many reasons. She's been thinking about her gopi friend. She knows they're wandering around, desperately seeking Krishna. She suddenly wants to bring them back. So she becomes submissive to Krishna at that point. She becomes in Dakshin Bhav. So now Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has described, they're both in Dakshin Bhav. So there are no waves of rasa, because they're both in the same moods. There's no contradiction. So these Vyabhachari Bhavs, they create some contradiction. They create some waves on the lake of the Sthayi Bhav. One time Srila Gurudev, we were walking in Puri on the beach, and he was looking at all these waves on the ocean. He said, these waves are like all the Sanchari Bhavs. They're churning the ocean of sweetness. So when these two moods became the same, when the rasa was checked momentarily, then Krishna left. Then Krishna left Radha. Then immediately Radha, she went into total lamentation. This separation mood was pouring. Even Krishna, he went into separation mood from Radha. He came to Imlital next door, and he took on that golden complexion. He became like Radha's separation mood. He was exhibiting, it was like a prototype of Mahaprabhu.
When that happens, doesn't the Sanchari Bhav, the Sthayi Bhav, like kind of recede into the background?
No, it's played on the top of that Sthayi Bhav. These waves can roll very quickly. These Sanchari Bhavs, Vyabhachari Bhavs, they can roll very quickly through. Radharani can be
they become the prominent mood
for that moment sometimes. Sometimes these Vyabhachari Bhavs can come very thick and very fast. Sometimes she can be feeling despondency. Then she can be feeling some sort of extreme humility. Or then all of a sudden she's feeling bewildered. They're like rolling waves, just like we see on the ocean, how the waves are rolling. So these Sanchari Bhavs, Vyabhachari Bhav and Sanchari Bhavs are the same. It's just different words for the same 33 moods. So these are called the Vyabhachari Bhavs. So, but this Purva Rag, this is in a different category. Let me just read a bit. We see, by the way, that the sweetest pastimes of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they're all these moods of vipralambha. You know, I think I described before that in the Babaji line, they don't speak so much about the separation moods. This is the uniqueness of the Gaudiya line. We much more open out these separation moods of Rupa Goswami. In the Babaji line, even though they honor Srila Rupa Goswami part, of course, but they don't discuss so much the separation moods. But we see in the Bhagavatam this Yugal Geet, the Gopi Geet, Brahmara Geet, the Venu Geet, these beautiful pastimes, they're all about separation. The Venu Geet is all about, this whole chapter 7 is pulling verses from the Venu Geet. The gopis are sitting in their houses and they're hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, and they're thinking how fortunate are the deer, the does, they can run immediately to Krishna. They have no inhibitions, even their husbands are running behind them, a little bewildered, but the does themselves are running right up to Krishna. Even the clouds, they're seeing like inanimate objects as having more love than themselves. This is a mood of like, these bhavs are coming into them very deeply. So these geets within the Bhagavatam are filled with this mood of separation. Gopi Geet. Jayati Tedikam Janmana Braja Shrayata Indira Shashvadatrahi Daita Drishyatam Dikshutavakas Tvaitridashavas etc., etc. These are all filled with lamentation, filled with this vipralambha mood of the gopis searching for Sri Krishna. So, Gurudev is describing a verse from Venu Geet. The Vrajramanis are always restless to meet with Krishna. This restlessness is due to their inability to be satisfied. They can't be satisfied unless they're with Krishna. It's just like a fish out of water. He can't be satisfied till he's put back in the water. And the nature of our souls is that it cannot be satisfied until we're serving Krishna. There's no satisfaction in our lives unless we're rendering progressive service to Krishna. If we're performing enthusiastic service, our consciousness are completely bathed in sweetness and satisfaction. If we're not doing that, then there's some restlessness. And we never, this restlessness is even there when we are doing that. We never feel that we're doing sufficient. We want to do more. That's the nature of love, the dynamic. Huh? Everything. Every moment. Their inability to be satisfied, which is the natural characteristic of their prema. They cannot be satisfied unless they're with the Lord. They are also unable to steady their minds in any way. It's not when they're with the Lord, but when they're with Krishna. They consider anyone who has even the slightest relationship with Krishna to be extremely fortunate. While sitting in their homes, the gopis hear the flute song of Govinda, who steals the hearts of all beings in Vrindavan, and they become completely submerged in prema ras. Their eyes, with eyes of bhava, they see the does in the forest, not only abandon grazing when they hear the sound of the venu, but abandon caring for their offspring and everything else as well. These does dash towards Krishna with great speed, stopping so close to him that they can touch him, that he can touch them with his hands. The gopis express their moods in a concealed way, avahita bhav. One says, "O Saki, just see the affection of these does from the animal kingdom they have for Krishna. Indeed, they are blessed. We, on the other hand, who have taken birth as human beings, are deprived of taking such darshan and performing such seva, which are a human being's right. This is a frustration in our lives." This is the mood of the gopis. We're trying to understand their moods so that we can follow their path more vigorously. These are all descriptions of their moods. In autumn, Brajendranandan Sri Krishna, beautifully decorated in marvelous attire suitable for roaming in the forest, enters Vrindavan to herd the cows and blissfully plays enchanting notes on his flute. One time we were sitting in one Charan Pahari, maybe you were there, Gopi, and Gurudev started to describe the sound of Krishna's flute. He said it.
I remember he did that once in Nidhuvan.
Ah.
And he started to talk about the flute.
Right.
And the way he expressed it, everyone experienced the sound of the flute. And it was like the most nectar that I've ever heard him speak before. And it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago when he did it. Maybe,
No, it was longer than that. Longer than that. I remember. He made us sit under the trees. In Nidhuvan they have very small trees. He made the whole Parikrama party sit under these little trees. We were sitting under these little trees, all of us, you know? Yeah, very small. But he made us all sit under these trees. And then he began to describe this. But also in Charan Bahari, I remember that he was describing Krishna's flute going in these waves and how it could enter any place. That's why Gurudev often described how when Krishna was very young, how he saw that his brother Baladev seemed to be stronger and bigger, and he was thinking more beautiful than himself. So he was thinking, how will I capture the hearts of the Brajaramanis later on? So he thought the best way to capture a soft gopi's heart is by music. So then he thought, yes, I'll play the flute. So then he began to play the flute at a very early age because he knew the sound of the flute could enter anywhere. It could enter places where men were not supposed to go. So that flute sound could enter all around Braj and he could capture all the hearts of the Brajaramanis. Gurudev describes that. He asked his mother for a flute when he was about less than 2 years old. He was about 1.5 years old. He began to play his flute. chanting notes. At that time, the does become content by seeing the sweet form of Shyamasundara, who steals the hearts of everyone in the universe, and by hearing the sound of his flute. One Saki begins to speak, saying, when the does hear the sound of Prananath Shyamasundara's flute, they become senseless and proceed towards him, staggering and stumbling. At that time, their husbands, the Krishna Sar deer, follow behind them, accepting the guidance of their wives. In this way, no obstacle prevents the does from meeting with Krishna. Krishna Sar means that Krishna alone is the essence of their lives. Hearing this, another Saki says, "O friend, this is really true. Where is our such fortune? We are females and the wives of other men, so we cannot abandon the fear of public opinion. When Shyamasundara goes cow herding on the path that runs by our homes, we can only get darshan of him through the holes of the lattice windows. For this only our family members abuse us and create obstacles for us. Our husbands are also disapproving. Birth as a deer is more fruitful than birth as a human." Now Gurudev says, the Brajadevi's longing to meet with Krishna increases more and more. Eagerness, utkanta, and longing, lalasa, to meet Krishna are very helpful for the sadhak. So how can we imagine any sadhak becoming eager without hearing these pastimes? We have to know how to explain this particular topic that we're talking about, because all around the world we want to follow the mission of our beloved Gurudev. Somehow or other we want to have his mercy to explain these topics, to entice the jiva to remember the Rasa Leela. The Rasa Leela is the crest jewel of all of Krishna's pastimes. It's the highest pastime. It's the sweetest pastime. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, don't leave the Rasa Leela in the hands of sahajias. We have to know how to present it to the world at large. We have to know how to give them this gift of Raganuga Bhakti. And we have to be following ourselves sadhana bhakti very, very strictly. We cannot deviate or move one degree away from the correct behavior. In all circumstances, or we will be condemned completely. You will have no potency to deliver this philosophy. Just like our Srila Gurudev. Our Srila Gurudev, how many years were we with him? Almost 20 years. Never for a single second, not for a second of a second of a second, did he deviate or be in any way not entirely enthusiastic. Even after a long, long flight, he would still be so utterly transcendentally situated. There would never be a lapse for a single second in his consciousness. He showed us this high example of how to behave and act if you want to deliver this topic. And this is our duty to deliver this topic. If we have any affection for Srila Gurudev, then we want to continue his legacy in the world. We are his legacy. It's not his books are just his legacy, but the devotees' hearts that he's touched are his legacy. This is, very important to appreciate, that what teaching are we going to carry? Are we just going to teach, love, peace and brown rice in the world, more or less, be a vegetarian and chant 16 rounds? Is that all we have to speak? Or can we speak something of the glories of Vrindavan? More than that, can we speak something of the glories of the inhabitants of Vrindavan? More than that, can we speak of the gopis? More than that, can we speak of Sri Radha? Yes, we can speak of Sri Radha if we understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Through the mercy of Mahaprabhu, he's giving us Sri Radha. Through these Siksastakam verses, through this progression, he's giving us this Raganuga Bhakti. He's showing us clearly how to walk this path. What are the steps on this path? If you explain it in this way, actually, if ever you hear any Ras guitar and it's not connected to Mahaprabhu, sometimes personally I feel a little uncomfortable. But if I always hear it very strongly connected to Mahaprabhu, then it's very simple to understand. It's very easy to go into that place. But if Mahaprabhu's prominence is not given, then it's sometimes a little can be vague or, I'm not quite sure if Mahaprabhu's teachings are not prominent, because Mahaprabhu has given these teachings clearly. Mahaprabhu has to be the base or the place to enter. It's like the doorway to enter these pastimes. So if we're hearing topics and they're connected very easily and strongly with Mahaprabhu's teachings, then we can feel very comfortable discussing these topics. And everything that we're discussing is connected to Siksastakam today. Pranaya Valokaya Pujam Dadati means that the does lovingly look upon Krishna with their very beautiful eyes, which serve as lamps to perform arti to him. Krishna reciprocates by accepting their worship. In Ujjvala Nilamani, Sri Rupa Goswami defines pranaya as the state in which the hearts of both the hero, the nayak, and the heroine, nayika, become one. The hearts of the does the hearts of the does are one with Krishna's heart, and therefore the gopis have used the word pranaya valoka. With these glances, the does offer their barbs as flowers and other articles to worship Krishna. In this text, the sweetness of the Braja Devi's paramour love is expressed through metaphors. So there are so many very, very, very sweet descriptions in this chapter. I'll just read from text 12 here. It's describing that, you see, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he's giving the udipan, or the inspiration, and Srila Gurudev is explaining his inspiration. These verses were compiled by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. These verses that compose this book were spoken by Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur in his meditation. Sometimes he would chant them loudly, sometimes he would meditate on them. But his divine son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he caught those verses and he wrote those verses down as the Bhajana Rahasya. These are Bhaktivedanta Thakur's own contemplation. This is his own bhajan. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is following the same bhajan line, the same confidential secret line. Now Srila Gurudev, he is fluffing out, he's opening out these verses for us. He's giving us his shiksha on Bhaktivedanta Thakur's verses that he's quoting. He's showing the direction, how this is coming through in this Siksastakam. So in this verse, this is from the Jagannath Vallabha Nataka. While Sri Radha suffers from the scorching poison of viraha, she expresses her transcendental emotions as described in Jagannath Vallabha Nataka. So, because we haven't got such time, I didn't go through the preceding verses. In the preceding verses, it gradually intensifies. It's like a direct experience. If you read this 7th chapter, it builds the reader to this point where we're at now. It's a living experience itself to read this chapter. All of these chapters, it's building all the way, just like Siksastakam itself. It's building the heart. It's intensifying the greed and the mood of the sadhaka. So the translation for this verse is quite a long verse, I won't say. Sri Hari does not understand the pain of separation in prema. In fact, prema does not know anything about who is deserving of itself or who is not. Kamadev also torments us, knowing us to be weak. It is impossible for anyone to understand another's misery. Life is so fleeting, it has no certainty, and youth remains only 2 or 3 days. Alas, alas, what kind of arrangement has Vidati, the Creator, in this? This is Sri Radha's lamentation. She's lamenting that her youth is going away and she's not with Krishna at every moment. Now, there's a commentary here by Gurudev. He's saying Sri Ramananda Rai gives the following description in his Jagannath Vallabha Nataka. Once Sri Radha and her Sakhis entered the Vrindavan forest. The Sakis began to describe the sweetness of Krishna's beauty with verses appropriate for Purvarag, such as Yam Yuva Yuvati Chitta Vidhanga Saki. This is from Jagannath Balavanataka. Shri Krishna spotted Radha from a distance, and they both became extremely restless to meet with each other. Radha sent a love letter to Shri Krishna through Shashimukhi Saki. Although Shri Krishna became overwhelmed with emotion upon reading it, he concealed his emotion and disrespected Radha and the gopis with words of indifference. This is like Prem Kutila. This is when Prem is taking a crooked road with the objective to increase the Prem. It's like in material language, we come to the lover and we say, "Oh, I love you." Where are you going to go with that? I mean, what happens after that? It's like, "I love you." Okay, so what? Now what? You know, okay. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. If you love that person, you will be sensitive to their desires, and you will try and serve that lover in some way. You don't have to say, "I love you, now it's all over," kind of thing. "Oh, okay, I love you, that's it," you know what? It's like so abrupt. What value does it really have? I told you before that when Shri Radha, if she hears that Krishna loves her, or rather if Krishna hears that Radha loves him, Krishna just thinks, "Oh, what have I done wrong now?" He thinks, he suddenly feels guilty. If someone is saying, "Oh, Radha says she loves you," you think, "Oh my God, what have I done wrong?" But if Radha says she doesn't want to see him, then he feels wonderful. Then he feels, yes, there's something really happening here. But understand our limited vocabulary and our limited conceptions in our world compared to this transcendental exchange. So the Sakis, yes. Sri Krishna, yes, read that. Love letter. Through Shashimukhi. Although Sri Krishna, yes, he concealed his emotion and disrespected Radha and the gopis with words of indifference. It is improper for women from good families to forsake their family honor to love me like this. This is what Krishna is relating to one gopi to tell Radha. She's written him a beautiful love-laden letter, and Krishna's responding by saying, it's improper for women from good families to forsake their family honor to love me like this. He's chastising Radha for writing a beautiful letter. He's saying she's a married woman. This is actually, challenging her honor to write such a letter to him. And what sort of response is that? How is Radha going to feel on that? That's going to send her right into man.
They did that when they went to the forest.
Yeah, in the forest they're meeting. And Krishna's playing. Krishna, he's the Raso Vaisa. He knows how to increase the rasa. So Radha has sent him this love-laden letter, and Krishna has just rejected it completely. Not only rejected it, but he's almost insulted Radha. How is Radha going to feel? Wow, I just said all that, and now he's saying this? Well, to hell with him. This mood, this contrary mood, this prem kutila, will start to manifest in Radha's heart. And this is what Krishna, it's like the conductor of an orchestra. He's conducting these moods, he's making them come higher, his expertise. It's described this in Prem Samput. In Prem Samput, Sri Radha is saying to Krishna, who else knows how to orchestrate that world, that music of Prem? Who else knows how to do it other than Brajendrananda? No one else knows how to do it. Krishna is so expert. Shashimukhi returned to Sri Radhika and, relating all this to her, advised Radha to place her attention elsewhere.
When they did that in the Rasa Leela, when they came to the forest, the gopis, when he said that, they were rubbing their toenails.
Yes.
Their feet in
Yes. Yes. Shyness. But here, Shashimukhi, she's coming back and she's telling Radha that she shouldn't think of Krishna, she should just forget about him. How's Radha going to cope with that? This made Sri Radha attain an unbearable, severe state of viraha. Just what Krishna wanted. And she conveyed her sentiments in this text. Sri Radha said to the gopi, Madanika, attracted by the incomparably beautiful form of Sri Krishna, I was unable to remain patient, so I sent a letter to him. O Saki, what was my fault in doing that? He is certainly crooked, as his sole intention was to give me a punishment equal to death. First he attracted me with the sweetness of his form, and now he is rejecting me. O Saki, you may ask, why do you feel affection for Sri Krishna when he is very competent in killing women? But what can I say? Ha ha, vida, kagati. It is very difficult to understand why the Creator gives a particular punishment to a particular person. I loved Krishna for pleasure, but instead of Vidata, Vidata is the name for the Creator, instead of Vidata giving me pleasure, he gave me sorrow, and because of this, my life air is now leaving me. So these are the sort of remarkable exchanges between Radha and Krishna, highlighting this viraha or vipralambha, emotion that Krishna is invoking in Radha. And now there's another verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita in Madhya Lila, where it's saying, O Saki, I do not understand the regulative principles given by the Creator. I loved Krishna for happiness, but the result was just the opposite. I am now in an ocean of distress. It must be that I am now going to die, for my vital force no longer remains. This is my state of mind. So this is a description of this verse that we are describing in Siksastakam. Even we've reached the stage in the previous verse, Nayanamgala Shridarya, that these tears are coming, the voice is choked up, the hairs are standing on end, and we've come into this high position of prema, and all of a sudden Krishna's not there. All of a sudden I'm void. It's vacant, it's saying, that it's like a millennium. Each moment seems like a millennium away from Krishna. So this intensity has increased like anything, but it seems like it's empty. That's what it's seeming like. Sri Radha continues, Saki, Mandanika, the movement of prema is crooked like that of a snake, and it is foolish. It does not consider whether the place is suitable or unsuitable, or if the object is fit or unfit. This prema is entirely spontaneous. This prema moves in a crooked way and has tied my hands, feet and neck with the ropes of that wicked one's beauty and virtues. I am unable to tie that knot. Very beautiful descriptions. So by reading and hearing these descriptions, certainly together in front of Radha Gopinath, we can get an idea of what is this vipralambha, what is this viraha. Sri Radha is so captivated by Sri Krishna's qualities that it is impossible for her to abandon the hope of meeting him. Her condition is similar to that of a person who relishes the sweetness of hot sugar cane so much that he cannot give it up, chewing it even in his mouth, even though his mouth is burning. Moreover, she says, observing my helpless condition, Mandana, Cupid, torments me with his 5 arrows by exhausting my entire body. These are divine exchanges, and the goal of the sadhak is to serve these exchanges. The goal of the sadhak is to serve Sri Radha in these moods. This is what is Manjari Bal. How will you pacify Sri Radha when she's feeling like this? We sing every day, Nikunja Yuno Rati Keli Siddhai. We sing this verse. This verse, the 6th verse of this Guruvastakam, is describing Guru's Swarup. This is what this verse is describing. The verse before that was very intense Raganuga. This Sri Radhaya, Madhurya, this 5th verse, this is describing the path of Rag. But then the 6th verse is describing Guru Swarup, that he's very expert in arranging for the pastimes and pleasure of Sri Radha and Krishna. So this is the service of the Manjari. So we should hear about this. If we're aspiring for that place, I can remember one time in Hawaii, we were in a garden and Gurudev was going around every single tree and saying the name of every single flower. He knows like all the names of all the flowers. I mean, what is he doing in the spiritual realm? Of course he knows the names of all the flowers, because when you make a flower garland, the flowers themselves have a certain message in each flowers. So he's putting these different flowers together to service Sri Radha, so she will give that garland to Krishna, or some trick will get that garland to Krishna, and Krishna will read a certain message in that garland, made up of particular flower. So Guru has to become expert, or the practitioner has to become expert in all these arts. For example, if that is our desire to string garlands like Vijay Kumar in Jagadama, he wanted to string garlands for Lalita. So you have to know what are the flowers, etc. We have to have some, inclination towards those services. Otherwise, how is it possible for us to go to the spiritual world? You get there, oh, I'm sorry, Radha, I don't know the names of all the flowers or where to get them from. Can you tell me what? I mean, you've got to know everything, right? It's like, mercy will be bestowed upon us, but something must come from us, some greed, some enthusiasm to actually imbibe these services. Otherwise, what is the value of our sadhana bhajan if it's not being focused on these conclusions, this end?
I think there's 16 or so different ways the manjaris make the arrangements. It's described in the Bhaktivedanta that they have different means to make Radha and Krishna to meet,
right,
come together,
right,
by cheating them.
Yes, yes. Ultimately, of course, Vrindadevi is orchestrating this. Vrindadevi is Yogamaya. There's two personalities of Yogamaya. Purnamasi is the older Mahant in the village. Vrindadevi is in a young body. Vrindadevi can enter the Rasastali. She can arrange the service to Radha and the gopis very easily. Purnamasi cannot. She's in an old body. And when the Rasa Leela begins, for example, Vrindadevi comes with all her duties, all her messengers, and they're all the audience to the Rasa Leela. When the Rasa Leela is going on so beautifully, the gopis are dancing so splendidly, like nothing that has ever been seen in creation. They have to be applauded. And that's all Vrindadevi and all her duties, all her messengers. They're all applauding, they're all cheering. The beautiful...
They're taking part in the dance also?
No, they're serving. The instruments, it's described, play by themselves. The personified individual of that mridanga, for example, will manifest and play that mridanga. The personified, stringed instruments, they will also play by themselves. Such a magnificent scene. Can we imagine on these banks of Jamuna, 350 million gopis dancing with their cloths, their sashes, etc. It's described during this time that the 8 million, what is it? How many species of life are there? 8 million? 8,400,000 ragas are conceived in this night of Brahma, that the gopis dance this Rasa Leela. Because there's a raga for each species in life. So each of these ragas is conceived and manifested at that particular time. How can the jiva suffering in this world ignore this pastime? How can he think, no, I don't want to hear about Rasa Leela? Gurudev describes that mentality as being atheistic when he's writing that introduction to Venu Gita. 3 times in one paragraph. He says, if you don't want to hear these pastimes, it means you don't actually really believe in Krishna. You actually just want to be peaceful, or you want liberation, or you want something other than the service of the Lord. Therefore, it's indicative of an atheistic mentality. fried.
When the Rasa Leela is going on, are there different types of animals also present, or just the gopis and the manjaras?
I don't know, I never read. I never heard, I never read. I don't think they have the adhikar to participate. Not even Lord Shiva has the adhikar to participate. So I can't understand. I have never read any description of any animals. But on the point that Jagatam just made, there was a time in Boston Temple in 1974, and they had 2 houses, and they had something like 60 brahmacharis were there at the time, and there were 4 brahmacharinis. And when the spring season came round and the testoni started to actually come in the males, and there started to be, these women felt very much threatened by all these men to some degree, at least on the subtle platform. The president, he wrote to Prabhupada and told him, look, we've got a bit of a problem, you know, there's 60 virulent young males here, and there's 4 brahmacharinis, and the vibes are just becoming like, it's not really conducive. Prabhupada said, you call everyone into the temple straight away, and you read them the Rasa Leela pastime from my Krishna storybook. He said, this is the antidote for lust. This is directly he said like that. He had so much faith, Prabhupada, in these descriptions. That verse I quoted at the beginning of the class, Vikriditam Brajavadubitam cha Vishnu, is such an important verse because it's saying that by hearing these sweet pastimes, the effect of it, first will come bhakti, from hearing these, first will come bhakti, and then from the manifestation of bhakti, this karmam hridrogam, this disease of the heart of lust, will disappear. First we hear the pastimes, and then pure bhakti will manifest, and then the disease of lust goes away. Not that we try and artificially purify this condition of lust, ever. You will never succeed. It's not possible.
Which temple was that?
The story I told is Boston. Yeah, Budara tells me this story, and we contacted the temple president because I just wanted to confirm that it was such a far-out story. And he wrote back and said, yes, that's exactly what happened.
So then we should hear those pastimes all the time.
We should hear them, Shradan Vito, Nushrunyad, it's saying in the verse. We should hear from those souls who are qualified to speak those pastimes. So who is qualified will be the next question. If someone is only speaking these pastimes, you have to make some sort of decision. Is this the right atmosphere for me to hear these pastimes? Is my heart being moved? Is that speaker purified sufficiently in my limited understanding? There has to be some discrimination here. And what the discrimination I have found, personally, is the cornerstone, is to hear whether Mahaprabhu's teachings are blended with those pastimes. Unless Mahaprabhu is being mentioned, unless it's under his guidance, I feel uncomfortable. If someone is just telling me some sensational pastime about Krishna and the gopis, and it's not in a proper environment or something, then personally I don't feel very comfortable at all. Sometimes even if you just read these things, it needs to be balanced. We have to know how to end. We can't throw the baby out with the water, and so to speak, and just say, I won't discuss these pastimes because I'm so unqualified. At some point we have to end. I remember Gurudev here, how many years ago was it? He was sitting right here discussing Prem Samput during Kartik for like 2 weeks, right in this place, with 1,1600 people who had very little adhikar of bhakti, what to speak of bhav or prem. And he was discussing these topics. He was trying to give us an impression of these topics, which is so necessary to go forward, without, having this impression from a Mahabhagavat. But now how to go forward? We have to make some discrimination. You can't just hear from any old Babaji who just drops in and just tells you, about some sensational pastime. And you have to see, I believe, the adhikar of the person who's speaking those pastimes. We haven't discussed any of those pastimes amongst ourselves. We haven't even begun to go there. So you can't go away and say, oh, Tridandi's talking about all these different pastimes. I'm not. I'm reading some verses, very selected verses from Bhajana Rahasya to support our study of Siksastakam. We haven't gone into that realm. I don't believe I'm qualified to go into that realm. I like to talk about the environment of that realm. I like to describe how to enter the realm, but actually to go in there, that is for higher personalities to take us in there.
I also have all the tapes of Vipralambha-bhava, and Gurudev says at the beginning you have to pray and weep. Pray and weep. It's not only just the pastime. Pray and weep when with a daily mind that I can participate in such pastimes.
That's beautiful. She's saying, Gurudev, she has all the Vipralambha-bhava tapes and she's listening to them, and she's saying that Gurudev is saying constantly, you have to pray and weep. When will that time come when I can enter these pastimes? It's by invoking the mercy of the Lord, by this eagerness, this utkanta we've discussed extensively, this mood of, great eagerness to enter here. But how can this eagerness be tended to? How can it be increased? The nature of prema itself is it's always increasing. That's its nature. It cannot be static. It has to be moving. The dynamic of love itself, even in this world, has to be progressive, it has to be moving. So we can pray for that mercy, to have that eagerness, to first of all even desire to hear these topics. But we're living in Vrindavan here. These udipans or inspiration are all around us all the time. We said there's Jamuna here. The sands of Jamuna are right in front of us. 5,000 years ago, this is the very site where this Rasa Leela was performed, Sevakunj. We have Vamsivat, we have Shringaravat, Imlital. All these places are just giving us, from the dust we get this greed. We have to pray for that. This greed will certainly arise by the essence of this Siksastakam, this Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. If we can catch up this holy name of the Lord, the holy name is coming from the sky of Krishna's heart. That's where it comes from. It comes from the sky of his heart. This holy name, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, that's our connection there. We're so fortunate to hear this, from Srila Gurudev. We're so fortunate to be here. It's amazing, our fortune. At the same time, we're so unfortunate that we don't have sufficient enthusiasm to capitalize on our fortune. You understand? So at the same time, both. It's 6:02. I beg you all to get I saw today a box of these Bhajana Rahasyas, and it looked like it was the American print version, the Indian version of Bhajana Rahasya. What have you got?
I think mine is the American.
You've got the American. Let me see that one. The side of it? That's the Indian one. Horrible. It's very hard to open. You can't open it nicely like this. It's bound, not good. The paper's inferior. But I just saw a whole box there of this particular edition. It's a treasure, Try and get this particular edition where the pages open nicely, because we can sit and chat. With this one you have to break the spine. Actually, you're probably better off just breaking the spine and then rebinding it loosely. But they bound it too tight, so it's not easy.
Maybe cheaper to buy a new one.
Well, if you get... But there, I'm just sharing with you that I saw today a whole box out there of this edition. And I've always considered it like a very special edition. And you just happen to have a box right here. Yeah.
Maybe I missed something you said. Are the manjaris dancing in Rasa?
No, they're serving. No. They never have a mood. They have this mood of tat tat bhav ichamai. This means that they only want to render service to Sri Radha. This Sambhog Ichamayi is the mood of the Sakis who want, ultimately, they're okay with having union with Krishna. They're not looking directly for that, but they will have union with Krishna. They certainly will dance with Krishna. The way Krishna is dancing with them is so intimate, wiping their perspiration from their faces, sometimes kissing their cheeks. It's so like Sambhog, it's so much in union. The Manjaris would never dream to have anything like, if Krishna tries to come to the Manjari, they will be so heavy with him. You know, my Swamini, she will reject you forever if you come near me again. They will be, and some, you know, they have such authority over Krishna because they're not looking to have a relationship with Krishna. They're only serving exclusively, one-pointed, their Swamini. When Krishna comes to the gate and the Manjaris are there blocking his way, Krishna has to be so submissive to them. But what these Manjaris receive, we've described, they become tadatmik with Sri Radha. So the moods that Radha experiences by being with Krishna, which is higher than the moods of those Sakis who enjoy directly with Krishna, of course Sri Radha's mood is higher. Then those Manjaris, they receive the same mood as Sri Radha. They become tadatmik with Radha entirely. They experience those moods. So, if you get some time, it's a very wonderful meditation to read this 7th chapter. It's just packed with mostly Venugit, and then it comes even more sweet towards the end. But you can read yourselves now at 6 o'clock. So, and tomorrow we go into the final stage of praying, this Astisya Vapadaratam Panashtomam, that in front of me you can enjoy with other lovers. Still you're my pranana, birth after birth. This is such a state of sweet consciousness that Mahaprabhu is speaking directly as if he's Radha. We came from the 5th verse in a feminine mood. Actually, the entire Siksastakam is written from Radha's perspective, but certainly from the 5th verse, this Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram. So we have that.
At the beginning you say Alamban and Udipan. At the beginning of the class you say there
that's about Vaibhav, yes.
two
Vibhav.
elements of what?
Alamban means the support. It's a description of this Vibhav or Vaibhav is the cause of praying. What is the cause of praying? One aspect of that cause is what is the receptacle, what is the container for praying, and the other is the udipan, what is the stimulant for the praying. It's described one time that Murari Gupta, I think it was, I've forgotten who it was, but suddenly one king produced a peacock fan, and who was that? Was it Murari Gupta?
Yeah.
Who? Mukunda. And immediately Mukunda passed out. It couldn't be Murari Gupta because his nishta was on Lord Ram.
Was a doctor, Ayurvedic doctor, but only for kings.
Yes.
Royal physician.
Yes, this is an example of Udipan, when he saw the peacock fan. And the king was very surprised. Why did my doctor suddenly pass out?
He fell from this platform.
Yes, they're right, he fell down because he suddenly saw this peacock fan and just, passed out in ecstasy.
And then he explained that, I just have epilepsy.
Yes, some bad life hairs, something.
One last point. When in Vilaka's Manjula Gurudev warns us, he said these very intimate things between Radha and Krishna. He said you shouldn't try to go too deeply into it in our stage because we still have many anartas. And if you try to meditate on it too deeply, then because of the anartas, the lust will come out. So he said you only pray to want to, what the Goswamis told us, that I want to experience this pastime or see this particular thing like that. Not that you meditate on it too deeply.
Very important. Shri Gurudev ki jai, Satchinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Shri Siksastakam ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Go Pranandi.
Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol. 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 Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol. Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol. Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari 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 Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari 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 Bol. Oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari 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 Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari 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 Bol. Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Jaya Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari. Gaura He, 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 Gaura He. Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe. Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Radhe. Oh Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe, Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe. Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe, Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Shri Vrishabhanu Nandini Radharani Brajeshwari ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Ju ki jai, Satchinandana Gaura Hari ki jai, Shri Bhajana Rahasya ki jai, Shri Gurudev ki jai, Gopinath Bhavan ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevaja Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavena